Welcome to my channel Oopsie Archive. Today we will meet the real pirates of the Caribbean. Henry Morgan was born in 1635 into a wealthy Welsh family. But after his father's death, he left Wales to seek his fortune elsewhere. He arrived penniless in the port city of Port Royal in Jamaica, so he started working at a sugar plantation as an overseer. Even though the job was hard, he quickly became rich by beating the slaves and ruining the lives of anyone that got in his way. Soon he also owned his own sugar mill and many slaves. In the beginning of 1664, Henry Morgan sailed from Jamaica to Panama with 200 men to take part in an expedition to plunder Spanish settlements in the region. However, during their journey, the ships carrying the provisions for the military campaign ran aground, and even though they were saved, all the food was lost. This meant the soldiers had no choice but to turn to piracy to survive. They attacked merchant ships traveling through the Caribbean Sea, stealing their cargo and sinking their ships. When the ships were full of riches, Henry Morgan would sell the captured ships to the highest bidder, usually one of the wealthy merchants who supplied the Navy. As time went by, he amassed a small fortune, which made him very popular among the people of Port Royal. When the governor of Jamaica died, Henry Morgan was appointed as his replacement. That didn't make him popular with the local business owners, though, as he cracked down on the pirates in the area and forced them to choose between leaving or being hanged. Bartholomew Roberts, however, wasn't born into wealth like Henry Morgan. He was actually born on a farm in Wales in 1682. His father wanted Bartholomew to take over the family farm one day, but he had other plans. He enlisted in the Royal Navy, where he rose through the ranks quickly due to his skills as a sailor and navigator. But when he was accused of stealing some money from one of his superiors, he was put in prison. He managed to escape, though, and joined the notorious pirate Howell Davis. Bartholomew Roberts soon became captain of his own ship, and he plundered the riches of the Chinese, Portuguese, and English. He targeted mostly merchant ships and avoided battles with the Navy. In just a few years, he earned himself the nickname Black Bart and became known as one of the most successful privateers in the Caribbean. When Howell Davis and his crew attacked the Spanish treasure ship Nuestra Señora de las Mercedes, they found out that there were no riches on board as it was supposed to be. A few days later, they encountered another Spanish ship called El Compadre, and they attacked it. The battle was fierce, but eventually the Spanish ship surrendered. To his surprise, Captain Roberts discovered that the ship contained more treasure than he could have ever imagined. There were gold bars, jewels, and emeralds on board. Some of the emeralds were so big that the sailors could use them as plates for their meals. It is estimated that today's value of the loot was around $600 million. After his fortune grew, Roberts built mansions in both England and Wales, where he spent his remaining days. Unlike Roberts, Henry Morgan never tried to hide his face behind a mask. In fact, he was quite proud of it. He kept his real face hidden under a black leather mask because of a rare disease called acromegaly. This condition made his nose and ears grow bigger, which turned people away from him. Henry Morgan's first wife couldn't stand to look at him, and he began wearing the mask whenever he left his house. He continued his cruel ways even after becoming the governor of Jamaica. He flogged people in the streets and ordered the whipping of women as well. So, when he passed away in 1711, the people of Jamaica rejoiced. While these three men may have been famous pirates, there was a man in the Caribbean who was feared by many, Edward Teach, also known as Blackbird. He was a very different kind of pirate than the others, as he attacked anything that came near him. He pillaged cities, merchant ships, fishing boats, and even the ships of the Royal Navy. He fought with cutlasses and pistols. But he was also a master of disguise and could use his knowledge to fool even the most experienced sailors. Edward Teach grew up in Bristol, England, where he learned the art of sailing. His father wanted him to become a successful merchant like himself, but he had other plans. He deserted his merchant ship and joined the Navy, where he served under the infamous pirate hunter Wood S. Rogers. This gave him insight into the mind of his future victims and taught him how to use his enemies against themselves. He traveled to the Bahamas, where he met with two notorious female pirates, Bonnie and Mary Read. Mary and Anne had met each other in England before joining a pirate ship. They were a formidable duo and had already built a reputation for themselves as merciless killers. After meeting Blackbeard, the three became lovers and set sail to conquer the Caribbean. Blackbeard's crew consisted of around 100 to 300 men, and he commanded them to attack anything that entered the waters of Nassau. He pillaged merchant ships, looted coastal towns, and left a trail of misery in his wake. To avoid capture, he hid his treasures in caves and old buildings. And even though the authorities knew of his hidden stashes, they never found any of the loot. One day, British naval forces finally caught up with Blackbeard and a battle ensued. Blackbeard fought bravely and managed to wound Lieutenant Robert Maynard several times. But eventually he was killed by a musket ball and stabbed more than 20 times with cutlasses. His head was cut off and hung from the bowsprit of the ship that had captured him as a warning to other would-be pirates. Bonnie and Mary Read survived Blackbeard's demise and continued their lives as pirates. They robbed and murdered many people until they were finally captured. They both received noble titles from the king for their service in the battle against Blackbeard and were set free. Now we will meet a real-life pirate princess. Saida al-Hurra was born in 1522 in the Moroccan city of Larache. Her father was the king of Morocco and her mother was an African slave. When she grew up, she married a wealthy Arab merchant named Uthman, but he quickly became abusive towards her. She escaped from her home and lived in the streets of Tangier. She became friends with a group of beggars and together they plotted to rob the rich and powerful. Soon she became the leader of the gang and they pillaged the city, attacking merchants and nobles alike. One day she met a notorious pirate named Jan and they joined forces to terrorize the seas. Her fleet consisted of 40 ships and hundreds of men. They raided merchant ships and coastal towns, and no one was safe from their wrath. Eventually, the King of Portugal offered her pirates a noble title if they would stop their attacks on Portuguese ships. She accepted the offer and spent her remaining days running a casino and brothel. Unlike the female pirates mentioned earlier, Grace O'Malley was not interested in fame or fortune. She was born in Ireland in 1596 and grew up hearing stories about her father's battles with the English Navy. Her father was killed by the English, and this fueled her hatred for the crown. She wanted revenge for her father's death and to claim her birthright. As chieftain of the O'Flaherty clan, she inherited her father's fleet of ships and used them to transport goods and kidnap people. She pillaged along the coast of Ireland, robbing both English and Irish settlements. Eventually, Queen Elizabeth I offered her pirates a noble title and land if she would stop her attacks. Grace accepted the offer and spent her remaining days living on her estate and fighting her enemies. Unlike the other pirates on our list, Qingxi was born into poverty. She was abandoned by her mother shortly after birth and raised by a fortune teller. When she grew up, she married a bandit and gave birth to 5 sons. But soon after her husband was killed in a fight with rival bandits. Determined to provide for her family, Qingxi took her husband's place and led the gang of thieves. She pillaged along the coast of China, robbing merchant ships and coastal towns. Eventually, the Chinese government offered her pirates a noble title and land if she would stop her attacks. She accepted the offer and spent her remaining days living on her estate and fighting her enemies. Unlike the other pirates on our list, Henry Every was not motivated by greed or power. He was simply a man who wanted to escape the clutches of the English Navy. He was born in England in 1659 and grew up hearing stories about the exploits of legendary pirates. Like Blackbeard, when he grew up, he enlisted in the Royal Navy, where he learned the skills needed to become a successful pirate. He deserted his ship and joined the crew of a notorious pirate named Bartholomew Roberts. Under Roberts' tutelage, Every learned how to navigate the Caribbean and plunder merchant ships. After Roberts' death, Every became captain of his own ship and pillaged along the coast of Africa. He attacked anything that came within reach, from fishing boats to merchant ships. To avoid capture, he hid his treasures in caves and old buildings, and even though the authorities knew of his hidden stashes, they never found any of the loot. Eventually, the English government offered him pirates a noble title and land if he would stop his attacks. Avery accepted the offer and spent his remaining days living on his estate and fighting his enemies. Thanks for watching. Which pirate was your favorite? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. See you next time.